It's the video recap of the 1998 game against the New York Jets, one of my favorite games of all time. Garrison Hearst, of course, with the 96-yard touchdown run. We'll get to that play at the end of the series, but we've got a few plays to break down over the course of the game. It's difficult to break down these plays because, no all-22, and apparently the aesthetic in 98 was zoom in on the line of scrimmage, which is annoying, but we're going to do our best. And so we're going to start with Steve Young having an uneven day with his interception on a play that he probably should hit. And it was really the right decision, but ultimately was a poor outcome.
Yeah, so something, we'll kind of let it run through initially here. But this was something, I think popped up on a number of throws, even on a couple throws on this same drive prior to this play happening. Just seemed to be kind of sailing some passes, right? Overthrowing a lot of stuff, leaving them high. Like he does here on the intermediate stuff, overthrowing guys on some of the more downfield stuff. And we'll see that, it's not like he had a ton of bad decisions or anything like that in this game. And this was one where he had a guy and he just missed him, right? So he's going to target tight end Irv Smith here, who you're going to see kind of break across the middle on this in-breaking route. And he's got him. I mean, he's, it's certainly not wide open by any stretch, but he's got a step of separation there and definitely a window to make this throw, but just leaves it too high, sails it right into the safety's lap. And this was the worst one. Thankfully, the only turnover that he had on these type of throws on the day, but this was an issue that popped up for him quite a bit.
Now, as far as we can tell, this looks like cover one. You can see the safety on the right part of the screen kind of rotate into what we think is going to be cover one, right? So it looks like ultimately they tried to make a disguise here, and this ultimately is the right read because you've got the safety or you've got man coverage underneath, you've got the linebacker, and when you've got a crossing route like that, basically you're thinking, well, you're just going to run away from that individual, right? And that's the crossing routes are what you want to hit if you're looking at someone who's lined up man to man. And so I mean he does have him, he does, yeah. And it's just high. And Irv does his best here. I mean, look at that extension.
Look, there's definitely not a yoga block getting under those feet. He is tripping over the yoga blocks. Not a lot of air on that one. But we get to some more positive stuff.
Yeah, Steve Young comes back, because a Hall of Fame quarterback, he's going to get his. And this was the thing that connects the line of 49ers offenses all the way from Bill Walsh through to Kyle Shanahan. It's the fullback wheel. And here we have Mark Edwards doing what he does best, getting a vertical route against what we think is cover three, and that linebacker doesn't get his depth. Ultimately, it's an easy decision for Steve Young, and Mark Edwards does the rest.
Yeah, and so again, it's kind of tough as far as coverage goes and this stuff. I mean, some of the things that you can use to your advantage, though, and things that you do have in view, is the first thing you look at is get a simple box count, right? Like once you know how many players you have in screen, you know how many players are out of the screen, right? And so we got, a 4-3 front here. I got my 4 down linemen, my 3 linebackers there. I've got 3 DBs, and so I know that I've only got one guy left. Once I get that 8th man in the box here with this slot corner safety or whoever it is, I know that I've only got one guy remaining that's outside the picture there. So I know that I'm looking at a single high type of coverage at this point because I don't see anybody dropping back. And then at that point, you're just kind of looking to see, okay, are they playing, more of a man technique? Do I see guys matching up with each individual receiver? Or do I have kind of more zone drops? And while we get this one guy who is kind of like following this motion, it looks like, I think that's likely more of just kind of following passing strength at that point with him being kind of a defensive back and being the extra guy in. You see the corners playing off here, outside leverage like they would be in cover 3. And then all my other linebackers here getting out to their drops. And so this guy that is late and is kind of having his oh shit moment here is the one that you would expect to be able to pick this up. So as we kind of go back to the snap, J.J. Stokes is going to be the receiver over here. He's going to kind of clear things out with a post route, and that linebacker that is the curl flat defender over here is the one that needs to see this wheel route from the fullback and be able to run with it.
Yeah, ultimately, this is something that threatens that sideline with 2 vertical routes when you've got one guy underneath and one guy going deep. And so really it puts stress on that underneath defender to carry that wheel route. And that's what Steve Young picks on. And that play, I think, is so interesting because in 98, it looks like a play that Shanahan would run right now. You've got the orbit motion that is threatening. You've got the fullback in the backfield, and ultimately that fullback becomes a passing threat. And my favorite part, look at that linebacker. Look at that linebacker just sell out.
And he's been out of bounds for like 3 steps at this point, and he's just like, get over here.
I love that guy. I love it. He's just, defenders make money too. And Mark Edwards says not today. So then we get to another play, but this is actually going to be a play where you've got J.J. Stokes making his money, justifying that 10th overall pick on a play that looks very similar to a play that we looked to in that 2002 wildcard game, but in this case turns out to be a J.J. Stokes touchdown.
Yeah, so if you've watched that previous video, you remember that we're looking for tie streets, and the concept that they were kind of running is more of a double post concept. And so a lot of times what you're looking at there is the outside post ends up being the guy that you hit a lot of the times on that, because the inside post is going to hopefully occupy the safety and any kind of the underneath droppers, and you really end up in more of a one-on-one situation with the cornerback on the outside post, which is kind of what happens again here. So this is set up in a very similar way to the Streets touchdown in that Giants game, where they're going to get the guy who's ultimately going to run the outside post, and here in Stokes, going to start in motion and kind of snap it once he just gets outside to this little bunch that they create with these 3 guys here. So Irv Smith, who is this tight end that's up on the line of scrimmage, he's going to be the one that would really have the inside post. We'll get a nice look on a replay. He gets kind of hung up on a reroute from this linebacker here. But otherwise, I get my other tight end into the flat, and that opens things up for Stokes here. And from a coverage standpoint, the Jets really kind of just have some miscommunication here and aren't really sure how they're going to cover it. So it looks like they're in more of a 2-high type structure, but you can see as Glenn, who is traveling with him in motion, as he's going across, he's pointing back to that safety. Like they're trying to get something communicated for how they're going to handle this, and they just don't end up on the same page. So that safety you'll see is right here, this guy that ends up coming up too far. And I think Glenn thinks he's going to have that safety there as some inside help to pick this up. And so just kind of a breakdown in their coverage, and Young's there to take advantage for a touchdown.
Yeah, you look at Young's rhythm, and here it's pretty clear to see that he's looking first left. He kind of checks and confirms coverage, and then he actually takes an extra beat to throw that ball to just make sure that what he's seeing is accurate. But the thing that he does here, where he just kind of gets to the top of his drop and then releases the ball, it is, I wouldn't say that it's different. I would say that it's really interesting to see how on rhythm he was throughout the entire game, because he was very rarely off rhythm. And oftentimes when we hear the thing where it's like, oh, he's on rhythm, he's off rhythm. But I feel like in this game, you're able to see this is what on rhythm looks like. He hits the top of his drop, he sees what he's going to do, and then he throws the ball. And Steve Young didn't always hit it in this game, but I feel like he was very, very in rhythm. He knew where he was going to go with the ball. He knew where he was going to distribute the ball on every play. And in this case, he did it, and it was a touchdown.
And the movement is so precise with him. So when you look at it like this drop back that he's got, right? So usually once you get to like the 5 and 7 step drop game, which is what we've got here, he's really going to settle at a depth usually of about 7 to 8 yards is kind of where you want your quarterback to be at. And so that's what the offensive line is all protecting for, right? So they're expecting the quarterback. I mean, they're at what, the 7-yard line here is where they're snapping it. So you're expecting him to settle right in this range here, and then maybe potentially step up a little bit from that depending on how long he ultimately needs to hold the ball. You can see he gets right there to 7, and then he's on 7. He just stays there at that spot, not moving around unnecessarily, not getting into spots that are going to put his offensive linemen at a disadvantage where they kind of have their leverage and angles taken away. And so that's just something, he was so good at and being able to set that up. And then here you get the look really at the route. Stokes doing a good job of really attacking this corner, widening him with the stem, and then that break to the post. And then again, here's my safety having his oh shit moment that like, oh man, I should be taking this inside cut, and I've kind of come up too far.
So the Niners weren't the only team that made some money today. You also had the Jets and Wayne Chrebet, who also made a little bit of money. And this was a play where the play design got him against the linebacker. Is it Lee Woodall? Is it Evander Holyfield? I don't know. But neither one of them, I imagine, is going to be good in coverage. And that's what happened here with Chrebet in motion, now isolated against the linebacker. And that's bad news bears for the 49ers.
And Foley, I mean, just has to be seeing that neck roll and salivating, like just knowing that, like, man, this is where I'm going with the football. I'm throwing at the neck roll. I mean, come on. How are you not going to? Look at this guy. Does this guy look like he wants to run 30 yards downfield?
This is like the Ryan Fitzpatrick, this is proto-Fitzy. You know, like this is like journeyman quarterback, 7th round draft pick, just making that money off of neck rolls.
Oh, and he's trying so hard too, and then he can't even get the tackle. Like letting this this tiny little white dude run away from you, like that can't be good for the confidence there.
Doesn't he? Wayne Chrebet is so confident in his skills, he doesn't even wear gloves.
Oh man, I didn't even notice that. A no gloves, man. That's just, you know, he's
doesn't not even tape. Not even tape. These are virginal hands. These are virginal hands that are catching this football and just adding a little extra sauce to that reception.
I don't need your sticky ass gloves. Get him out of here. Get him out. Oh man.
Oh God, that's Lee Woodall's oh shit moment. I'm not gonna do it. But let's get back to the Jerry Rice touchdown, because this is you talked on the pod a little bit about how the DBs are just not equipped for the game situation. This is a 4th and 1, 4th and 2 maybe. And look at where the DBs are lined up, and Jerry Rice just catches a simple out route, and it's easy money, and then Jerry Rice does Jerry Rice things, and it becomes a touchdown.
Yeah, it's just it's really baffling to me. So we'll get this cut in here and kind of run it back to the beginning. But it's just like, I don't know what you're thinking here. I mean, it's not even like it's a big open field situation, right? So I mean, they're at the 14-yard line here, the line of scrimmage. I can understand. I mean, it looks like they've got a blitz coming, right? So likely not any safety help back there, or maybe you just got the single high safety. And so you could understand if you were more, back, the 49ers were back in their own territory. You could see maybe the thought process there for the defense being a little bit more like, okay, we're going to try to get him with the blitz. Hopefully we catch him in a good play call. But we don't want to really give up a big play and give up like a 75-yard touchdown by letting somebody behind us, right? But down here, like, I don't really know. If you can't expect your guys to like stick with a receiver for 14 yards, like, I don't know what you're doing. But this is just asking to have a quick throw under it. Like, even if I would imagine, with guys as smart as Young in this offense that they've got there, like, even if this wasn't the call in the huddle, like, Young is seeing this and is like, oh my God, like, they're just giving it away to me right now. The 49ers did the same thing on a Wayne Chrebet touchdown at the end of the first half, where they had a guy playing about this far off. Darnell Walker was playing here, and like this, if you imagine the 10-yard line is the goal line, and it was just like he's playing 3 yards deep into the end zone there. So just like, some situational awareness that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you get just an easy gimme conversion, but then you got to like Rice, right? Coming off the knee injury here, making this cut on the infield dirt and getting in the end zone.
It's a pretty basic curl flat. I mean, it's not anything crazy. And we saw a similar kind of play score in that 2002 game. But sometimes when basics are well executed, you end up with a little something more. And here, he hits the flat, it's a first down, and that cut right back, and all of a sudden it's a touchdown. He ran 4.5, but that looked a little that acceleration looked a little faster. And man, Mooch is just amped.
Just pumped.
Look at this.
Look at that face.
Look at that. That is Coach Taylor in the 4A playoffs. You think Friday Night Lights was a 5A school?
Look at him staring it down. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, look at those Steely Blues.
I've never thought about that before, but yeah, it really is some Coach Taylor vibes going on there.
Oh yeah, Friday Night Lights, absolutely. Like I'm expecting him to just yell "Clear Eyes, Full Hearts" at any moment. At any moment. But we get to now the end of the game, and this is this is actually the second Stokes TD. This is the TD where Steve Young just throws it up, and JJ Stokes is like, yes, you know what? I was the 10th pick for a reason, and I'm going to pluck this ball out of the air in front of this poor safety. Because
Or wait, he's
if
the
you look
outside
at this
guy.
play,
Take that back. Sorry.
yeah, if you look at this play, I mean, Steve Young at this point, it's play action. He throws it up to a spot. At this point, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh no," and then JJ Stokes is like, "Oh yes, let's make this happen."
So first off, Phil Simms, we kind of
Phil Simms
took some shots at him on the pod, but like immediately going to the all 22 replay and circling the wrong safety. Like you gotta love it. So yeah, really what they've got going on. So again, Stokes is the outside receiver here. And so the Jets are going to end up in sort of a quarters type coverage, 4 deep, right? I got my 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Deep guys that are splitting the field into quarters. And then the 49ers
real quick.
Oh, go on.
Real quick, one of the things. So I always have trouble figuring out 4 versus 2 sometimes. One of the things that helps is looking at the safety. The safety in cover 4 has run responsibility first, and on that play action, you can see that safety over here near the 20-yard line. He takes a step up because he sees that play action. When you see a safety, when you see the shell and that safety take that run responsibility, it's more than likely Ford, just because he knows he's got a run fit, and then he starts to bail after he knows that run is no longer a threat.
Yeah. Those safeties should really be your key. So quarter safeties are not only that, they're going to be usually at a depth that's a little bit closer to line of scrimmage, whereas your cover 2 safeties, because they really need to stay on top of everything. They are the final line of defense, in that coverage. They're going to typically start a little bit deeper and then really be looking to get a ton of depth after the snap. And then, you can go to your corners, of course, here and see whether they're kind of following and staying deep, or whether they're going to more look to reroute at the line of scrimmage and then kind of settle into the flat. And so what they end up over here, again, Stokes is this top guy, kind of basically like a pin concept here, where you're going to have a post on the outside and then an in-breaking route from the slot receiver here. This is a concept that you see a lot in today's game because of how it attacks this coverage, but the way that they're running this quarters coverage here is a little bit different than what you would expect, I think, from a team that's running today. Usually you would see this safety really look to lock on this number 2 receiver once he gets to a certain depth here. So you would kind of expect him to more follow this, and then you look to hit the post over the top, right? Because it's a really tough route for the corner to be able to cover. He's usually kind of sitting with outside leverage anyway, so it's really hard for him to get on top of this deep post here. But the way they play it, they kind of just basically pass off the outside post from the corner to the safety. And this is the safety. Like, again, Young at this point is already throwing it, right? So we go back just a couple bit. Like, Young right here is letting it go. This safety is in perfect position. I mean, Young, really, this is a jump ball. Like, I'm just going to trust my guy to make a play, because this safety is all over. I mean, backpedaling, like just tracking the ball already, and then he just keeps backpedaling, and it gets to a point where he lets Stokes undercut the route and take it. And you can see, I mean, the disgust is real and well-deserved.
Yeah, this is often called the Mills concept as well, because Steve Spurrier basically rode this concept with wide receiver Mills and did a lot of very, very nasty things to it. But, Steve Young is throwing to a spot. He's throwing, but he sees cover 4, and he's like, yeah, this is the guy that should be open, and he knows he's going to get a hit. He throws it. JJ Stokes validates that decision. And it's really hard to catch a ball when you're falling backwards.
Just sad.
It's just really difficult to do. And yeah, this may be the video of oh shit moments, because he right there, that is the oh shit moment.
That's how I feel watching him play in this game. Like, I just want to crawl onto the floor and do the same thing, because it's really, really not great.
So now we get to the Jets. Dedrick Ward, they decided to make a game out of it late. 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The Niners are up by 3, but Dedrick Ward decided that he was going to play some football. And here you got a really good pass from the quarterback and a corner route that just, Zach Action Bronson does not live up to his newly appointed moniker. And all of a sudden the Jets are in business.
So Bronson's the guy right here. You can kind of barely see his helmet sticking in the frame right on the edge here. But 49ers really went to playing just kind of a pretty vanilla cover 1 look for a lot of the, end of half type situations. And so you can see, again, I've got, from a numbers standpoint, I know I've got one single high safety here. And then all of my, defensive backs other than Bronson here are going to get up into sort of a press man look, right? I got eyes on my receivers everywhere. McCorders, I think, no, that's Darnell Walker down here, a little late, but he gets his eyes to the receiver eventually. And then they have Bronson kind of playing off essentially. So if they're going to do any sort of switch release stuff with these three receivers here, you don't have defensive backs just kind of running into each other. But he, even from that off alignment, gets beat on this deeper route, right? So yeah, like you mentioned, just a great throw from Foley. I mean, being able to get this in over the top, of this kind of underneath route here that he's got to clear, and then finding the guy that gets separation. But Bronson, yeah, just kind of, again, giving up a lot of space. And we go back, I mean, it's, I think 2 plays later. Yeah, so they have the first and second down play, and then we get to this 3rd and 10 here with 17 seconds left. It's the exact same coverage. The Jets go empty here, so we had to pull a linebacker out to go over to the back. But otherwise, right, I've got my, go back here. On my trip side, right, I've got my outside corner and my inside most corner up pressed. Bronson is the guy, again, on the number 2 receiver here that's a little off frame, and just gives up a ton of separation for a pretty easy throw. Takes himself out of the play with a terrible angle.
Yeah, OG Fitzy making some moves here, ultimately allowed the Jets to tie the game and push this into overtime, which is what gets us to the marquee play of this game, which is the run, 90-0. Now we're in overtime, a couple of punts, and the Niners are backed up on their 4-yard line. Let's go ahead and let this run.
Oh my God, it's so great. That stiff arm every single time, man.
I love it. It's a double dribble. It's illegal in other sports, but here we'll allow it. Oh, and he even grabs his shoulder pads too. I mean, that's a pretty smart play from the linebacker.
Oh man, he's trying to get it out.
You know what? You got to try. I always do feel like in those situations though, the under punch is a little better.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have been able to reach, but man, Coach Taylor still hype.
Still
pumped. He's literally screaming clear eyes, full hearts at this point. But the end zone is where you get to see some of the fun stuff because, Bob McKittrick said that this play was perfectly executed. And I can't say that I agree. You're going to see a couple of missed blocks here on this play, which is it's a gap play. And so what we mean by a gap play is you're creating additional gaps by moving players. So if you go back to this end zone view, you've got your A gap, B gap, C gap on the play side. Well, each one of these players has one of those gaps. But then when you pull one player from the other side and move him over, now all of a sudden you create new gaps. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do. You're going to get a numbers advantage, create a new space for that player to run through, and that's what happens here. But there are a couple of other players that don't quite get their blocks, and ultimately Garrison Hearst saves them. Yeah,
so the couple that you look at here, I think, are both the tackles. Like, I mean, first off, this formation is just great, right? So this is like I always refer to as like the FAR formation, where basically, so you've got your split backs, like pro set, right, where you'd have kind of each of your 2 backs basically equal distance away from the center on either side. I've got my near set, which is if you took Garrison Hearst and put him near the tight end, that's right over here, and then I've got what they're in right now, far set with him on the opposite side. On the tight end, and the way that they set this blocking up, it's kind of it's unusual for today's run game. Like, I don't think you would really see any sort of run scheme that would look like this, because it's kind of like this weird blend of trap and power in a way. So what you're going to get with all these gap scheme runs, the play side guys usually, so the guy, I got to run to the right here, so the offensive linemen on my right side of the offense there are going to be my play side guys. They're usually going to be looking to block down, right? So I get all these down blocks here, and then I get my puller that comes over and creates my additional gaps over there. So the reason I say that it's kind of like a mix between power and trap, so if this were just pure power, I would expect this tackle to be able to come down here as well, and then this would be the guy that my puller is getting to. The way they end up doing it is he goes outside here and leaves this defensive lineman unblocked, right, which is more of like a trap type scheme, but they have the fullback pick him up as opposed to the pulling guard. So they end up with 2 kind of kick out blocks here from my fullback and my my pulling guard. But the 2 plays where it breaks down is, one, I got my backside guard here that's trying to get up to the linebacker and cut him off, right? So I want to get to this inside shoulder so that I seal him to the outside away from the run. You can see he doesn't get that, lets that linebacker inside. And then my other tackle over here is trying to get up to this safety who's coming down to fill as a support player, just kind of completely whiffs on that block. And so I end up with basically two guys converging on Hearst about 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage. And this play, like, very easily could have been bottled up right here if not for an excellent individual effort from Hearst.
And Bob McKittrick said that this play really, when everything goes well, gets you about 5 yards or so. And that's about what they would have gotten if those players actually made the tackles for the Jets. But instead, Garrison Hearst breaks the tackle right there. And then it's just, get out of here. I'm going to go ahead and dribble you. I love that stiff arm. I remember
God, it's so good.
I practiced the stiff arm so often when I played football, specifically so that I could try to replicate that. Breaks another tackle, and here comes Terrell Owens.
Dude,
I mean, look at that hustle. Look
such
at that
a
hustle.
beast.
He gets one guy,
And then comes off.
and then gets him again, and then he gets another guy. I mean, it's so amazing. And then you've got 74 running down, looking like he's doing something, but really just falling gracefully.
But really,
And the
let's take a look
referee.
at the ref here. All right. So, again, we love our Niners running backs. We really do. Garrison Hearst, man, loved watching him play.
We're going to do a
But-
Charlie Garner game just to complete the
God,
cycle.
Yeah, that would be perfect. I mean, until basically the current Shanahan era, the 49ers apparently just refused to like running backs with any sort of long speed. Because I got Hearst here, and like, look, I get it, man. He's gassed. He's forced 3 missed tackles at this stage. We're getting to midfield, but like, look at this ref here, running with him stride for stride. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Come on,
Man, he's got to be in a position to throw those hands up because that is a touchdown, my friend. Look at that.
Look at that.
And then,
Props.
touchdown immediately. He's right there. He is doing his job. That referee, Garrison Hearst, Terrell Owens, Dave Fiore, everyone coming together in beautiful glory to win this game in overtime.
Funny video issues here as the video ended, but hey, we all got to see the fun stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's such a fun play to watch, and it's like, you know, one of the most memorable 49ers plays that we've got. And so it was a lot of fun to go back and watch this game and see it end that way.
Well, that does it for the Patreon video recap. Thanks again for tuning in. And as always, go Niners.